I make a beat, I upload it. I don't even know what content ID is really. So now I'm screwing people over kind of unintentionally. However, some people are saying that they found a person who was doing this intentionally. Peace, what's going down? It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good insomnia, whatever time of the day that you're watching this. I got the full team with me, which is actually a privilege right now. So shout out to Aaron, shout out to Dame. Everyone is dedicated to this podcast, which is amazing to see. I know, Dame, you have some health
Yeah,
issues.
I think we've all been going through a lot one way or another. So I'm struggling. So if you see me looking hella tired, I know I'm looking crazy right now. I've gotten very minimal sleep over the past week and some change. But we're here. Let's knock this podcast out. We got some dope topics. I wanted to shout out my homie Propaganda, independent artist, been grinding for a very long time, but he just launched his beer. He's got his own beer. I believe it's called Terraform Beer. And I just think he is a great example of an independent artist that has a billion different entry points for you to become a fan. Obviously, he's a musician, but he's so much more than that. Like, he's rapped, spoken word, public speaking. I think he had a coffee. He's got a podcast. Now he has a beer. He's done an amazing job at just creating so many different entry points for you to become a fan. And that's why I try to encourage artists to do the same. Like, you want to build this world that represents yourself in so many different ways to give your fans an opportunity, to give people an opportunity to become a fan in different ways. Some people might discover him because of his beer, some people because of coffee, some people because of the podcast. The podcast is a political podcast. I think it's called Hood Politics, and that's been doing very well. I think that does better than his music at this point. But he still is a pretty well-known artist, especially in the Christian hip hop scene. So shout out Propaganda. I'm not a beer drinker, so I'm not going to tell you I'm going to try your beer. I don't like beer. But I think it's dope that you have your own beer. And you set a great example for the independent artist, man. Shout out Propaganda.
Well, you can try his coffee.
Yes, I can try his coffee. I don't know. Actually, he hasn't been pushing the coffee lately, so I'm not sure if he's still doing that. But yeah, I don't drink coffee either, but I will try coffee. Beer.
Was he making coffee, or was he highlighting like black coffee roasters? Right, that's what he was doing. I could be wrong. I just know I remember like black coffee stuff.
Yeah, that I remember more of it. I know that coffee is a big part of his brand, right? Because like he tries exotic coffees. I just remember seeing videos of him like making coffee in different ways. He's got like a very unique coffee maker. I don't know. But anyway, Payne.
Well, hey, speaking of black coffee roasters, I'm drinking Black Aroma right now, so shout out to them. But yeah, I want to transition from something as benign and positive as coffee into some kind of scary. This is like the X-Files for the producer community right now. There's a conspiracy that somebody, and I forget his name, I'm so sorry, sent me on Instagram, and I'm like, there's no way this is happening. So, we're always talking about content ID and how it's affecting royalty-free samples, right? Anyone can use a royalty-free sample, monetize it, put it on Spotify, put it on YouTube, whatever. That's how royalty-free licensing works. The person who makes the sample owns that work, but they're allowing others to use it in a commercial way without paying them royalties. That's what royalty-free means. So with content ID, this is just a summary to review. If somebody decides to be a jerk and run a beat or a song that uses a royalty-free sample through a content ID system, they're saying they own that royalty-free sample now. They're everything in the track. And now they're taking money away from anyone else who uses that same royalty-free sample. Obviously, that's a problem. That's illegal. Now, most of it is just, by mistake. I make a beat, I upload it. I don't even know what content ID is really. So now I'm screwing people over kind of unintentionally. However, on Reddit, some people are saying that they found a person who was doing this intentionally just to make a whole bunch of money, just to skim content ID money. Now, apparently, allegedly, An artist by the name of Dirty Lee, who's based in Japan, is uploading hundreds of just the bare minimum simple beat loops using Splice samples, running them all through a content ID system, and potentially monetizing tens of thousands of people's music who have used those samples. I checked them out on Pandora. They have 199 albums up. 199 albums. Each album has about 10 tracks on it. So that's, roughly 2,000 Splice samples that they're monetizing and claiming ownership of. And I know a lot of people, this is where things get tricky, just because a lot of people don't understand why this is a big issue. They're like, well, that's kind of bad, but it's not, illegal. Yeah, it's absolutely illegal. The person that created, again, this is how royalty-free samples work. The person that created the sample owns the sample. So if anyone else comes along and claims that they own it, i.e. this Dirty Lee person, then that's an infringement of that person's copyright. And this stuff is on Spotify. This stuff is on Pandora. And the other thing too is, and I'll show you, you have 199 albums on the platforms. That's a lot. That you're prolific. This person only has 71 monthly listeners. So kind of all signs point to this just being a scheme to skim money off of whoever is using these Splice samples. And granted, a lot of people will say, well, just file the dispute. One, a lot of people don't even know they can because they don't understand how this stuff works. Two, a lot of people don't even have the time to do it or the energy to do it or the know-how to do it. Three, if you file a dispute, there's a chance that the distributor who represents Dirty Lee will just say, nah, we're going to maintain our dispute, or we're going to maintain our ownership of this. And YouTube or whatever other platform you're filing the dispute through is just going to say, okay, well, we're out. They're going to keep it because there's a disagreement. So then you would have to go through the extra step of contacting the distributor directly, do it. So it's a big hassle just to prove something that is self-evident, which is that this is a royalty-free sample that is legally up for use by anybody. So this is kind of absolutely nuts. I don't know really what to say about it other than holy shit.
This reminds me of I heard about this guy who he would buy up not copyrights, trademarks. So like if a company, he would just be on the internet all the time, and if a company started to take off, he would just buy their trademark, right? So it's like a lot of young companies don't buy the trademark right away, so it's $3,000, and then he would send them a cease and desist letter saying that he owned the trade. Like as soon as he got the paperwork, cease and desist, I own the trademark of this, whatever. And then people would lose their mind, and he'd be like, okay, you can pay me $20,000 or give me a royalty off of all money earned for the next like 4 or 5 years. And he was getting like literally hundreds of companies. This dude was a millionaire, right? All because he went to law school. He was a paralegal. He was like, anybody who buys the trademark owns it, and he just became a scammer. So stuff like this, and I think the reason that I heard about it is because he was specifically like in like the music and apparel space. So he was going after like hot streetwear brands or like up and coming like music brands and stuff like this. It was just like a sleazy dude, right?
Yeah, so probably targeting like majority people of color, young people
yes, literally
are like first generation business owners. Cool.
And they're just
really
paying out the money, or they're nervous, so they're whatever, or they can't afford the legality. They didn't even buy the trademark. So this sounds to me like somebody who is very savvy. This isn't an accidental, like this dude was a paralegal. He was like, I could make more money sitting at home and just finding hot brands that are burgeoning and then threatening to sue them, right? So this dude is sitting at home, probably didn't make much off of his music, maybe had a bad bad content ID situation. You know what I'm saying? Because people are saying you could say something. I know plenty of producers right now who don't know that they can claim their beats on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't know about content ID. So it's not even about a content ID dispute. It's like these people, a lot of the people he's taking advantage of probably don't even know that if you just upload your music to YouTube and you say, this is my stuff, now you can get paid from it, right? So it's very predatory, the amount of albums he has up. Like, I just think about some dude rolling around in a nice car, telling all his homies he's a producer, and they're trying to figure out how he always has money. You know, when you have those scammy friends that you're like, I don't know if y'all ever been friends with a scammer, but you're like,
Oh yeah.
how? And you don't dislike them, right? Because scammers are like drug dealers to me. They're usually the coolest people to be around. You know what I'm saying? Like, drug dealers.
Hey, what drug dealers are you around that are so cool? I'm around some scumbags.
Nah, and I'm telling you, like, especially the culture of Atlanta drug dealers. Atlanta drug dealers are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Like,
oh well, Atlanta's just cool. Everyone in Atlanta is nice.
True, but I'm saying drug dealing culture in general. I'm not saying everybody's the homie, but especially like here, it's a culture thing. Like, drug dealers are tight here, my experience. I'm not saying everybody, but yeah, it's like, it seems like this dude is super savvy, knows what he's doing, or woman, whoever knows what they're doing. They're just like, they probably created their own bot for it too. So they don't even have to do the work. They're just finding it, uploading, scrubbing. It's sick. It bothers me. I hate when people are predators. I don't know a fix for it because the only people who could fix something like this wouldn't be interested in fixing it. But I hate it. It's a terrible situation. I hate that people take advantage of people.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Here was a comment on Reddit. I can't substantiate this number. I know Splice is making a lot of money. Their valuation is high, and like the multi-millions, maybe almost billion. I should look that up. But somebody commented, it seems like the corporation that this time last year received 55 million in funding would just legally take him out. And you know, I defend Splice because this is not their fault. They make it very clear in their end user agreements what's permissible, what's not. This is not permissible. And you know, international copyright law says this is not permissible. However, it's happening, and I do feel like it's time for Splice to say something. Also, the beautiful thing about this situation compared to the trademark scenario that you gave, the trademark scenario is completely legal. There are 1,000,001 legal ways to fuck people over. Period. That's how the law was written. I'm not going to get socio-political, but that's how the law was written. That's how it's been since the inception of this country. People have been excluded. People have been, you know, the law, concentration of wealth and power by those who either have it already or understand how to game the system. That's the name of the game. With copyright law, this is a little different. So Dirty Lee's channel and Spotify page and account and everything could be taken down pretty easily. If discovery is the first step. This is a relatively new discovery. I'm talking about within the last week. So the creators of the Splice samples could very well be filing claims and takedowns against Dirty Lee and their distributor right now as we speak, and within 3 days everything's erased. Because if someone steals a beat from me and they don't want to come to a resolution when I reach out to them, I just file a takedown because I own the beat. And usually what happens is the distributor says, well, and this is like the good and bad of the distributors just being completely nonchalant about, you know, the fate of an artist's music, whether they're the ones doing wrong or they're the ones being victimized by someone gaming the system. They'll just say, you know, we don't even want to deal with this, so we're just going to take down their entire catalog and ban their account. So this could very well happen to Dirty Lee. And yeah, maybe this person is making enough money to justify getting a brand new distribution account every single time this happens. But after a certain point, it's not going to work. There's a ceiling for this kind of scam. What I would love is for this kind of scam to just cease to exist. The only reason it exists is because of the content ID system. That's it. you can't do this with ASCAP and BMI. You can't do this with Sound Exchange. You can't do this with Harry Fox Agency. There's no other kind of royalty in the music business space that you can scam this directly other than Content ID. So I just want to throw the entire Content ID system out. But let me just verify this Splice number quick, and then we can move on.
I also wish that like there should be some type of control that like, because I would imagine that he uploaded 199 projects in a relatively short amount of time. Like that should raise a flag for a distributor, and there should be some extra layer of research that should be done before that's approved, before that's okay to be put up on DSPs like that. That right there is crazy too. I mean, I guess there's no interest in a distributor doing that. I don't know if they really care, but that I would hope would raise a flag.
You think
with a distributor?
Okay, so here it is. That I have confirmed that $55 million investment. It was from Goldman Sachs. This happened last year, and at this point, and this is as of February 22nd, 2021. According to Rolling Stone, my favorite music publication ever, Splice is worth now $500 million. This was last year, so more than a year ago. So they could be worth more right now. So they have the resources. All I would say is, let's have. I'd love. Hey, Splice, any representative of Splice, come on here. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's just at very least advise the end user what to do in this situation, and give some kind of information to the community about whether there's a plan of action, whether there's any information we can give them, resources we can give them to prevent this kind of thing or protect themselves against it when it happens. We have to be proactive about it. All right. That's all I'm going to say on this.
So apparently, let me try to set it up. Even though I don't know too much, I've heard of this name. I've never listened to any of his music. But apparently he's a drill rapper out of New York, Fivio Foreign. Has some type of deal with Mace. Now, I don't want to talk about it because I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if it's a management deal, a production deal, signed to his label. But anyway, Fivio was on $1 million worth of game with Gillian Wallow. And when he was on there, he basically said that he signed to Mace for $5,000. So he gave him $5,000 and he signed some contract. I don't think he knew what was in the contract, what the contract was about, but he signed and got $5,000. And he claimed that that's all he's received. Now, I went on Spotify and I think he has like 2 million monthly listeners. So he's doing his thing. Apparently, he's got some big songs out in the East Coast that are resonating well with people.
He's got tracks with Kanye. He's on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like he's got like Kanye's biggest radio song right now. He's on with it's Fivio, Kanye, and Alicia Keys. They dropped it like 4 or 5 months ago, but it's like I don't think it's the song of the summer, but it's the song of the summer on the radio. So beyond his monthly listeners, he's raking it in on radio play right now and live shows.
Got you. Okay. So he claimed that he was signed for that's all he got, $5,000. So when that podcast aired, I think Mace heard it, and Mace wanted to then go on $1 million worth of game and kind of explain from his perspective what really happened. And Mace went on there and said he didn't get $5,000. He actually got $750,000. He says that he's the one that kind of brought him to the label. The label gave him advance of, I think, $1.5 million, and they split it. Again, like, I don't know what kind of deal that is where you split your entire advance with someone. Does anybody, Aaron, did you watch the podcast? Do you know what kind of deal this could be? Like, even...
I've just been watching clips on socials, but that's a thing now. Like especially when young dudes are signed, like, do y'all know Rocco here in Atlanta?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Rocco is responsible for every Atlanta rapper for the most part. There would be no future without Rocco. Like everybody, like I just can't get into it. So Rocco is a music exec, but basically,
and like a furniture mogul, right?
Yes, a lot of things.
Yeah.
He's rich. He's a
good ass rapper too, for the record. I know we're about to get into some kind of gray area in terms of grinding.
No. I'm not ever going to publicly disrespect Rocco at all. Nope. I'm just saying, because Rocco has access, rappers will give him anything, right? So there was this big thing that happened years ago when when Future dropped the Fresh Air record and all of that. Like, you know, he dropped 2 albums at the same time, but it was because he still had multiple albums left in his deal with Rocco. So he was trying to drop them because Rocco was taking 50% of everything from Future. That's the story that had come out. I don't know for sure, but like, it was like, Future's a public figure. Rocco, nobody knows unless you're in the scene. And he's just taking 50% of everything that Future was doing up until like 2 or 3 years ago, allegedly. So I'm saying that that's like a very consistent, like, street deal. I don't think it's wrong, but it's like these dudes want to get on. They're going to the dude who can get them the most on. And they're like, what do you want? And most of these dudes are previously artists or have worked with artists before, and they're like, we're not doing the management joint, whatever. I'm taking 50% of anything you get, but I'm taking you places. Meg Thee Stallion, she signed a similar deal, like where she got like $50,000, and she was like, I don't care. I'm just trying to essentially get on. I think part of it is ignorance of the artist, but truth of the matter is, Fivio, I don't know if y'all saw, he was like giving out numbers and trying to act like he didn't know what was going on. And Mace is like, his numbers are wrong. I think that consistently happens where artists are literally like, I don't care. I just want to get on. I'm willing to do whatever. And if I'm keeping it a buck, if that was only 4 or 5 years ago and Fabio's in the place that he is now, Mace definitely did his thing. But yes, to answer your question, 50-50 deals, like 50% of everything, very, very common, especially in the street music joint. Like I'm talking about pure 50-50. Like you get 50% of the advance, 50. Even if I gave you $500,000, I'm getting my 500,000 back, and I'm getting like that's like very, very consistent with my experience.
Okay, so that was the discrepancy. I mean, obviously, you know, if somebody says they only got $5,000, like somebody's lying. Like that's too big of a discrepancy to say, hey, no, I gave you 750,000, not 5,000. But
I mean, he might have got the chains. They might have recorded the album. People think an advance is a signing bonus. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like he might have done the whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. I'm looking like a famous rapper real quick, and then he realized he didn't have a lot of money. But I agree, $5,000 is a huge discrepancy. Like somebody lying.
Mace accounted for. I guess he owed him 50,000 because Mace was buying him stuff, things like that. Mace said that he actually gave him 700,000 because he owed him 50,000. Right. So I only like to talk about like what is exactly they say or if we know. So obviously we don't know these two individuals. We're not part of this discrepancy or issue, but I'm just going based on what they say. So apparently the deal maybe is a 50-50, obviously, because May said he took 750,000. But then he said that he gave back his touring and merchandising. He said he could have got that forever. For 30%. So Mace was like bigging himself up for giving, in his mind, what a good deal is. So he says he took back the 30%. So Fivio no longer has to give him 30% of touring, 30% of merchandise. Again, which is crazy because I know that Mace is not working with him on like a day-to-day basis. So he would have owed him 30% of his touring. Like if you take 30% of somebody's touring, like they're not going to be able to tour for a very long time because they're not gonna be able to make it work from an expense standpoint, right? If you're taking 30% off top of somebody's touring, like,
I think it's 30% net, but I'm still with you.
Okay, but still. So and Mace got funny when like Gillian Wallow asked if like who owns the masters. He laughed and said, "Well, that's another story." They didn't dive into that. So
Columbia owns them masters. That's why he's laughing. There's no way Columbia gave Mace $1.5 million for a new artist and doesn't own the masters.
This is also what Mace said. Mace said that he has the type of deal with Columbia that only like Baby has, that only like Mace seems to think he got some kind of deal that only a certain amount. Again, I don't know what the details are, but in his mind, like here's what I think is the biggest issue, and it spurred my post, my Twitter post, my tweet from a few days ago. You know, a fair deal is different in eras, right? Like a fair deal today is different from a fair deal 5 years ago, and it's way different than a fair deal 10, 15 plus years ago. Now, Mace, obviously, we know of Mace because he was part of Bad Boy, signed to Puff. And we don't know the details of his deal, but apparently Puff owned everything, like his publishing, like he owned a lot. So Mace technically was in a bad deal, maybe for even in the early 2000 standards, right? So I think it would be kind of bad to do a deal with Mace because his perspective is stuck in a different era. His perspective is going to be stuck in a different era. So what he thinks is a good deal by today's standards is probably not a good deal. And it may not be him saying like, hey, I'm doing you shady. He's probably think he's doing a good thing because he really was celebrating him giving back 30% of his touring and merchandising. That, from the outside looking in, is the biggest problem with this situation. You know, I just
also,
think that
at the height of the Bad Boy dominance era, they were making way more than Fivio Foreign's making now. I mean, just because, well, one, it was a different era. And when I say they, I guess I mean Diddy, but different era. He had multiple artists, and Mace, you know, when the couple clips I've seen of Mace speaking, my head was spinning because it just didn't feel like he was being specific. And it was just kind of one of those things where I'm like, all right, I'm not going to get anything of substance from this. I got to fill in the blanks. And I can't fill in the blanks because I don't have any details. So I guess we're just really never going to know the truth. But Mace was not ghostwriting, but he was writing for multiple artists on the label. He was a solo artist himself. He was on every single song. So he was doing a lot. But again, I think and Fivio Foreign is not in that situation today. It's just a different era. But yeah, there's just a lot missing from this conversation. And also there is the difference between what was happening in 1998 and what's happening in 2022. The landscape has changed. But again, ultimately you get what you agree to. And I mean, we've talked about this before, even in very fair deals, like a management, you know, we talked about this, Dame, with our respective management situations. Obviously yours was way crazier than mine, but even mine, managing an artist, asking for 20%, very standard. And once that artist realized that they had to pay 20%, when the money started coming in, they flip out and they're like, no, I didn't understand this. Why? And it's like, you understood it. It just wasn't real to you yet until you realized that if you made 500 off a show, you had to give, you know, a couple hundred over to us. Not even a couple $100, right? So yeah. That's not a big deal, but to some people, that's a big deal. It's like, why is your hand in my pocket? And it's like, well, we got you the 500, so just give us one and you're winning. But some people freak out about that. So it's really, I don't know what to say, because on the one hand, I don't know any details, but just thinking in general, like for myself, if I were in a position where somebody gets me a deal, right, and the deal is 1.5 million and they keep half of it, that's kind of crummy. But let's say that I parlay that into,
no.
Well, it can't, look, if that's the only, I took the deal though. I took it. So I can't say anything about it other than, okay, I learned my lesson. And if I had a time machine, maybe I'd try to negotiate to like 70-30 or 60-40. I don't know. But
if somebody told me right now, based off my talent, they could get a $1.5 million deal for me to do what I do every day, but they're going to take half of it, I'm taking it because I'm betting on myself. Do you understand?
That's what I'm saying. So you parlay that.
I'm saying I don't even consider it predatory though. Meg Thee Stallion's deal, hella predatory. I'm saying based off of what we know and what I'm on Wikipedia right now, based off of what we know, it says basically Mace walked him in the door of Columbia. If I'm Mace versus Fivio, and Fabio's just another of a million rappers. No disrespect to Fivio, I think he's tight, but you're a drill rapper. I'm walking you into a label. I don't know what type of situation Mace got going on, but shout out to Mace. You know what I'm saying? Like, he may still be writing and we don't know it. Like, he may really have them in his pocket like that. I still don't think he get no masters houseway because Kanye West can't get his masters back, and Kanye West is Kanye West. So I don't know about Mace, but I'm saying if somebody says I'm gonna get you a quarter of or $750,000 just to keep doing what you're doing, I'm gonna take X, Y, and Z. I don't want to co-sign that. I'm saying this is a bad deal. I don't agree with that. I'm not saying it's a great deal, but I think artists get way too much fucking credit to be respectful. Like, artists don't do shit but make music. Artists don't even be making brands. You making a song, somebody walking money into you, like, for the most part, I know people gonna lose their mind, but I'm saying I can throw a rock and hit an artist that I can help put on the same trajectory as all my other artists who are charting on Billboard right now. If you are remotely talented and you listen, you can make money if you're with the right business person. So I think the business person is more important. This is not a rant about business, but I'm just saying they both look sus. Let me say that. I don't know what they got going on. It both looks sus, but I'm saying I don't think this is a bad or predatory deal as it stands. You're taking 30% of everything but you taking 50% of the upfront money. I don't think that's bad.
Well, it all depends on where Fivio was when he got signed, right? Like,
he had a hit single. He had a hit single that was blown up.
So if he had momentum, he had a hit single, then that, to me, lowers Mace's leverage, because a lot of people could have walked in and got a deal at that point.
He had the hit single. That's what I'm saying.
Right. That's the other piece too. It's like, to what extent is Mace really involved in what he's doing? And that's what, because Mace wanted to take credit for kind of a change in sound. Like, I guess, before, I don't know what the content of his most popular song is, but Mace seemed to believe that he changed the trajectory of, like, the content of his music. Like, before, it was just like kill people, kill people, kill people. And then Mace was like, hey, you should get on some more fly shit here. Let me show you what most people are going to resonate with, so there's some A&Ring going on. So to the extent in which Mace is really involved and present is a big factor here that we don't know currently.
What I was gonna say though is, for me, if somebody right now with my life, if someone added a zero to my net worth, but they made way 3-4 times more, and I'm the one whose talent is being exploited, that's a conversation to have with myself. Am I cool with that? I'm a multi-millionaire. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I can sleep at night being a multimillionaire. I don't feel like I need to go out and crusade against the person that allowed me to, or at least connected some dots that led me to being financially successful, as well as my music reaching the audience that I wanted it to reach. So that's what I'm submitting to the conversation. It's hard for me to just think of myself as a famous multimillionaire, but kind of like bitter at the same time. Not saying that Fivio's bitter. I haven't seen the interviews, but a lot of artists are. I mean, a lot of artists, like even the Hobson situation. Hobson's financially well off, and he's on these interviews screaming. And, it's a lot of people screaming on the interviews, just upset as fuck. And you're like, wait, but you're living beyond.
And the byproduct of that.
Well, it's like Hobson's deal, but don't put that back, because Hobson's deal is better than this. Like that,
infinitely better. I'm just saying, like, you look at those interviews and you would think that Dame literally had Hobson chained up in a closet.
But did you see how the conversation came up with Fivio? It's like, it's not he wasn't even thinking about it. That's why I feel like it can't be that bad, because it just came up.
Okay.
It came up in a discussion, and then look at his eyes. They're like, I'm a big body language person. That's like, way more communication happens based off of what you don't say. And everybody says that, but people be listening to niggas and acting like it's fact. But they asked him, they were like, oh, when did you get out of that deal? And he was like, I'm still in it. Like, hey, nigga, there's no way that you're still in a deal that's taking 30% of everything that you bring in, and you don't know about it. You're not talking about it. Your lawyers, your business. Do you know what I'm saying? Because he's at the point where he has a little bit more freedom and autonomy, I think, because it's like the new age of signed artists, right? They have the internet, whatever. It just seemed like it was something that came up and he thought about it and was like, oh, I think I'm still getting taken advantage of by Mace. That's why again, no disrespect to Fivio, I'm not choosing a side. I'm just looking at the way that both of them were talking. And I'm like, one, it seems like they completely missed each other because it's two different stories being told, which is common when it comes to business and music. But two, I don't think Fivio is out here like complaining about it. It just looked like it was a topic that came up. They were like, how did you get on? Whatever. May sign me. Da 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 da. But also, I don't know when the timeline is. I will agree with you, Dame. But if you're looking at, okay, so Fivio Foreign's first album was called Bible, right? Mace was really, Mace is on his spiritual journey. He was a pastor. He's still on that, whatever. Even Diddy talks about it in that Bad Boys documentary about how Mace is like, kind of bringing him back around to certain levels of spirituality. So I'm not saying that A plus B equals C, but it really does seem like Mace was there and instrumental in Fivio Foreign's like the format, because it seems like to me he was his big homie. He probably knew about him, was maybe taking him around to some stuff when he was getting on, and then it turned into, let's formalize this as a business deal. I'm, again, not commenting on how fair it is. I think fairness, like Dame said, is about who you are, what you are. But if you are a street dude and you have a hot song, even if you have a hot song, a lot of times when these big labels come around, they're going to shit on you. Like Mims. Y'all remember Mims? This is why I'm hot. Like, there's a million examples of Mims having people break out songs. Nothing happens after that. So,
I'd love to talk about Mims at some point, though.
For sure. So, like, credit to Fivio to keep his career going. Credit to whatever happened with Mace and everybody, because there's a million people who had a breakout record. So I want to note that too. We can't just say, well, anybody could have taken him. Like, most of his album was produced by Mike Dean and Kanye. Like, that's not happening just because you got signed to Columbia. So something's happening. One of his first big songs after that song blew up was with Drake, right? So either he knows somebody, or Mace is getting him in, or his team. Either way, it was done right. That's all I want to comment on. Like, I think that there's artists tend to like to just bring something up and talk. I don't know. It seems a little bit weird to me. It don't seem like Fivio is bad off. I'm with you on that, Pain, but I also don't like to stand and tell people don't complain about their money, because I also think some of the things that some of these bigger artists, like what's his name in Philly, I'm completely blanking. He realized he wasn't getting paid. Wow, I'm
Meek?
looking at his face right now. What?
Not Meek Mill?
Meek, yeah. So Meek like got screwed for real, but has so much money. He's able to stand on his money and sue the people, right? So I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying you're in a position where you can rectify the situation instead of like blaming adult men for your situation, because you're an adult man who decided to opt into this situation.
So let's wrap it up. So what are we pulling from this? We're pulling that, hey, you should understand what the hell it is you're signing and what kind of deal you're in. It's ridiculous for you not to know like at least the basics in terms of percentages, master ownership, length of time, all those basics. Like, you should know what kind of deal you're in. You should also know that with the people you're dealing with, you got to get on the same page on like what they think fair is, right? Like, people can have totally different perspectives on what that is. It doesn't mean anybody's doing anything shady. You know, Aaron just might think 50% is cool, and somebody else is saying no, 20% is fair, right? So you got to be on the same page. And I just would encourage people to hopefully have better relationships and open dialogue, communication with the people that you're working with. I just think it's ridiculous that it even gets to this point, that it even gets public, so other people even start to know about your business dealings as an artist. All that to me should be buttoned up, and you should talk about that and just have, hopefully a better relationship. Because I just think it's unfortunate that we keep hearing about this stuff time and time again. Like, stop going to the internet with stuff. Like, be a professional and just handle your business behind closed doors, because this shit is messy.
Anybody try to come for me about numbers, I'm bringing receipts to the internet. I can't wait.
Well, that's what Mace did. Mace sat there and he had recordings of what Fivio said about him in prior, I don't know, studio session, like just basically praising Mace, praising him. So Mace did have some evidence of like how at least it started out in terms of his impact on his career and how Fivio felt, and he had his contract, things like that. So yeah, and I did the same thing with Funk Volume Crash and Burn. Like, I got the receipts, you know what I'm saying? Like, but nobody cares about the receipts. Like, people care about, whoever
that
has
soundbite,
and whoever got the biggest platform wins. So, but anyway, we can wrap it up. I know we gotta cut it. So, yeah.
Yeah, these situations are always chaotic, especially when we don't know the actual facts and figures. It's hard for us to either agree or disagree, because what are we agreeing or disagreeing on? We don't really know. So filling in the blanks is always dangerous territory. So take everything we're saying with a grain of salt, because again, we can only speak on what's in front of us. And so we've experienced really great deals and what we would probably consider unfavorable deals. But again, it's all based on context. It's based on who's involved. It's based on the end result. It's based on, the difference between where you are at point A and where you are at the end of the journey. So keep that in mind, but keep an open mind and make sure that you're just moving with intention and with the knowledge of what it is that you're doing. As easy as that seemed, it's not always easy, especially when you're in the music business, you're in a creative field, and maybe some fame or money comes at you that you're not necessarily ready for or conditioned to handle. And if that does happen to you, we wish you the best. Till then, we'll be back next time, same place on the MEC podcast, and I'm live every single Tuesday on the Looped In Show on BeatStars at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, beatstars.live. And if you want to get a text every time I go live, I will send you one. Just text the word MEC to the number 844
206 7800 844 206 7800. You'll get a text before we go live or before Pain goes live. And we'll keep you posted on future updates on the MEC.
Till then, appreciate you tuning in. Peace.